The backyard was a kaleidoscope of pastel balloons and laughter. But my heart was a lead weight sinking into a cold abyss. I stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching a glass of lemonade that had gone warm, watching my sister, Emily, bask in the glow of her gender reveal party. At 28, she was radiant, her laughter sharp and bright, slicing through the chatter like a blade through silk. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not after losing the baby I'd carried for 5 months. A loss so fresh it still bled into every breath I took. My husband, Mark, squeezed my hand, his calloused fingers grounding me as Emily's voice rang out, calling everyone to gather around the cake. "This is it. Everyone," she trilled, her eyes sparkling with a secret she couldn't wait to spill. The big moment. The crowd cheered, but my stomach churned. I'd told Emily about the miscarriage 2 weeks ago, in a quiet moment when I thought I could trust her. I'd bared my soul, my voice cracking as I described the ultrasound that showed no heartbeat, the doctor's gentle apology, the way Mark and I had held each other in the dark, grieving a future that would never be. She'd hugged me, promised to keep it between us. "I'm here for you, Claire," she'd said, her voice soft as a lullaby. But now, as she stood by the cake, her smile was too wide, too sharp. She raised a champagne flute, her engagement ring glinting in the sunlight. "Before we cut the cake," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd, "I want to say something. This party isn't just about my baby. It's about family. And sometimes, family means sharing hard truths." My heart stopped. Mark's grip tightened. I knew that tone, Emily's prelude to cruelty. The same one she'd used as a teenager when she'd accidentally told my high school crush I was obsessed with him. I braced myself, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. "Claire," she said, turning to me, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't name, pity, maybe, or triumph. "I know this has been a tough time for you. Losing a baby, it's unimaginable. I just want you to know we're all here for you." The world tilted. The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling like a stone dropped in still water. My miscarriage, my private grief, was now a spectacle for strangers and cousins and neighbors I barely knew. My cheeks burned, and tears stung my eyes. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Mark's arm slid around my shoulders, his voice low and furious. "What the hell, Emily?" She blinked, feigning innocence. "Oh, Claire, I'm so sorry. I thought you'd want people to know, to support you. I didn't mean." "Stop," I whispered, my voice raw. The crowd was staring, some with pity, others with awkward discomfort. My mother, standing near the cake, looked horrified, her hands clasped tightly. My father, ever the peacemaker, started toward Emily, but I raised a hand to stop him. I wasn't the fragile sister anymore. Not today. I stepped forward, my legs trembling but my resolve ironclad. "You thought wrong," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "But since we're sharing truths, Emily, let's talk about your party. About this cake." Her smile faltered. The cake, a towering confection of pink and blue frosting, sat innocently on the table, a knife gleaming beside it. She didn't know what I'd done. She didn't know that 2 days ago, when she'd asked me to pick up the cake because she was too busy, I'd had a conversation with the baker. A conversation that changed everything. "Claire, what are you talking about?" Emily's voice was sharp now, her confidence cracking. I picked up the knife, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. "You'll see," I said, and the crowd leaned in, sensing the shift. This wasn't just a gender reveal anymore. This was something else entirely. I plunged the knife into the cake, the blade slicing through layers of sponge and frosting. The crowd held its breath as I cut a perfect wedge, revealing not just pink or blue, but something else, something I'd planned in secret. Something that would turn Emily's moment of triumph into a reckoning. The cake's interior wasn't just pink or blue, it was layered with both, swirled together in a chaotic dance of colors. But that wasn't the twist. Tucked inside, hidden in a hollowed-out section, was a small, sealed envelope. I pulled it out, my fingers steady despite the pounding in my chest. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of confusion and curiosity, as Emily's face paled. "What is that?" she demanded, stepping closer, her voice sharp with unease. I held up the envelope, turning it so everyone could see. "You wanted to share truths, Emily," I said, my voice steady now, cutting through the tension like the knife through the cake. "So let's share one more." 2 days ago, when I'd gone to the bakery, I'd overheard Emily on the phone, laughing with her best friend, Tara. She hadn't known I was there, picking up the cake she'd delegated to me. Her words had seared into me. "Claire's so fragile right now. It's pathetic. She'll probably cry through my whole party. Maybe I'll say something to make her feel included." The cruelty in her tone, the casual dismissal of my pain, had lit a fire in me. That's when I'd decided to take control. I'd asked the baker to add the envelope, a last-minute addition Emily wouldn't suspect. Inside was a letter I'd written, not just to her, but to everyone here. It was my truth, my reclaiming of the narrative she'd tried to steal. I opened the envelope, my hands trembling slightly now, and began to read aloud. "Dear family and friends," I started, my voice carrying over the stunned silence. "Today was supposed to be about celebrating new life, but my sister decided to make it about my loss instead. She shared something private, something sacred, without my consent. So let me set the record straight." Emily's eyes widened, her hands fluttering to her mouth. "Claire, stop." "No," I snapped, my voice rising. "You don't get to control this anymore." I turned back to the letter. My miscarriage was the hardest thing I've ever faced. It broke my heart, and Mark's too. But what hurts more is betrayal. Emily knew how raw this was, and she used it to make herself the center of attention. Again. The crowd was silent now, their eyes darting between me and Emily. My mother's face was a mask of shock. My father's hands clenched at his sides. Mark stood behind me, his presence a quiet strength. I kept reading, my voice gaining power with every word. "But I'm not here to dwell on pain. I'm here to tell you I'm still standing. And I'm not alone. Mark and I are adopting a child. We've been approved. And in a few months, we'll welcome a little girl into our family." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Emily's jaw dropped, her carefully curated facade crumbling. I hadn't told her about the adoption. I hadn't told anyone except Mark and our parents, wanting to keep it private until we were ready. But Emily's stunt had forced my hand. And now the truth was out, not just about my loss, but about my hope. "Claire, you're lying," Emily stammered, her voice shrill. "You're just trying to ruin my day." "Ruin your day?" I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the stillness. "You announced my miscarriage to a crowd of strangers. You don't get to play the victim here." I held up the adoption papers, tucked in the envelope with the letter, for everyone to see. "This is real," I said, "and it's ours, not yours to twist or exploit." The crowd erupted in whispers, some stepping closer to see the papers, others turning to Emily with disapproval in their eyes. She looked around, desperate for an ally, but even Tara, her best friend, avoided her gaze. My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and pulled me into a hug. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Emily's face twisted with rage and humiliation. This was supposed to be my moment. She shouted, her voice breaking. "You always do this, Claire. You always have to make it about you." I didn't flinch. "No, Emily. You made it about me. I'm just taking it back." The backyard felt like a stage, and I was no longer the grieving sister in the shadows. The envelope in my hand was a spotlight, and Emily was shrinking under its glare. Her eyes darted to the crowd, searching for sympathy. But the faces she met were a mix of shock and judgment. Her moment, so carefully orchestrated, had unraveled. Mark stepped closer, his hand resting on my lower back. "You okay?" he whispered, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. I nodded, but my heart was racing. This wasn't over yet. Emily's fiancé, Jake, pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with confusion. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between me and Emily. What did you do?" "She humiliated me," Emily cried, pointing at me. "She's turning my party into her sob story." Jake frowned, glancing at the adoption papers still in my hand. "You told everyone about her miscarriage, without asking her." Emily faltered, her bravado crumbling. "I was trying to help. I thought. You thought you could use my pain to make yourself look compassionate." I cut in, my voice steady but sharp. "You didn't think about me at all." Jake's jaw tightened, and he turned to Emily, his voice low. "We need to talk. Now." He grabbed her arm gently but firmly, pulling her toward the house. The crowd parted, their whispers growing louder as Emily's protests faded into the distance. My mother, still teary-eyed, stayed by my side. "Claire, I had no idea you and Mark were adopting. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I sighed, tucking the papers back into the envelope. "We wanted to wait until it was certain. It's been a long process. And after the miscarriage," my voice caught, but I pushed through. "We didn't want to announce it until we were ready." But Emily forced my hand. My father joined us, his face etched with regret. "I'm sorry, Claire. I should have stopped her. I knew she was planning something, but I didn't think it'd be this." I shook my head. "It's not your fault, Dad. Emily's always been like this. She needs to be the star, no matter who she hurts." The crowd began to disperse, some offering quiet words of support, others slipping away to avoid the awkwardness. A few lingered, asking about the adoption, their voices warm with genuine excitement. It felt strange, this mix of pain and hope laid bare for everyone to see. But in a way, it was freeing. Emily had tried to weaponize my grief, but I'd turned it into something stronger. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden streaks across the yard, Mark and I sat on a bench, the weight of the moment settling around us. "You were incredible," he said, his eyes soft. "I know that wasn't easy." "It wasn't," I admitted, leaning into him. "But it felt right. She needed to know she can't control me anymore." He kissed my forehead. "She's going to be furious about the adoption. You know that, right?" I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Let her be. This isn't about her anymore." Inside the house, I could hear raised voices, Emily and Jake, arguing. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but the larger part, the part that had been betrayed, refused. She'd made her choice, and now she'd face the consequences. As the evening wore on, my mother brought out plates of food, trying to salvage the party's remnants. Guests mingled, their conversations quieter now, but the air was different, lighter. Somehow, as if my truth had cleared the smog of Emily's theatrics. I caught snippets of their words, so brave. "I can't believe Emily did that. A little girl. How wonderful." By the time the stars began to speckle the sky, I felt a shift inside me. The grief was still there, heavy and real, but it wasn't the only thing defining me. The adoption, our little girl waiting for us, was a beacon of light in the darkness. And Emily's attempt to break me had only made me stronger. The house was quieter now, the party's energy drained like water from a cracked vase. Guests had mostly left, leaving behind a scattering of paper plates and half-empty cups. I sat at the kitchen table with Mark, my parents hovering nearby, their faces a mix of pride and worry. Emily and Jake were still upstairs, their argument a muffled storm behind closed doors. My mother set a cup of tea in front of me, her hands trembling slightly. Claire, I'm so sorry, she said again, her voice thick with guilt. I should have known Emily would pull something like this. It's okay, Mom, I said, though it wasn't entirely true. The sting of Emily's betrayal still burned. But I didn't want to burden my parents with more guilt. They'd always tried to balance our rivalry, to love us both despite Emily's constant need for the spotlight. Mark squeezed my hand under the table. What matters is Claire took control. She didn't let Emily win. My father nodded, his eyes tired but warm. You've always been the strong one, Claire, even when you don't see it. Their words were a balm, but the wound was still raw. I sipped the tea, letting its warmth ground me. When the door upstairs slammed open, Emily stormed down, her face blotchy from crying, Jake trailing behind her. His expression was unreadable, a mix of frustration and resignation. Claire, Emily said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. You had no right to do that. This was my day, my baby's day, and you turned it into your pity party. I stood, meeting her gaze. Pity party. You announced my miscarriage to a crowd of people. Emily, you used my pain to make yourself look like some saint. Don't talk to me about rights. Jake stepped between us, his hands raised. Enough. Both of you. He turned to Emily, his voice low. You crossed a line. Em, you know that. She opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off. No, you don't get to justify this. Claire's right, you didn't think about her. You never do. The words hung heavy in the air. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they didn't sway me. I'd seen her tears before, wielded like weapons to shift blame. Not this time. I'm sorry, she said finally, her voice small. But it wasn't sincere, it was the apology of someone caught, not someone remorseful. I shook my head. Sorry doesn't undo what you did. You broke my trust, Emily, and I'm done letting you hurt me. She flinched, but I didn't stop. Mark and I are building our family. We're moving forward. You can either respect that or stay out of our lives. Jake put a hand on her shoulder, guiding her toward the door. We're going home, he said, glancing at me. Claire, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was going to do that. I nodded, too drained to respond. As they left, the silence in the house felt like a deep breath after being underwater. My parents sat with us, and for a while, we just talked about the adoption, about the little girl we'd soon meet, about the future. It was a conversation I'd been too afraid to have until now, and it felt like a gift. Later that night, as Mark and I drove home, he reached for my hand. You were fierce today, he said, a smile in his voice. I'm so proud of you. I leaned my head against the window, watching the city lights blur past. I just want to focus on us now, on our daughter. He nodded, his thumb tracing circles on my hand. We will. And Emily, she'll have to figure out how to live with what she did. The road stretched ahead, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace. Emily's betrayal had hurt, but it had also set me free. I wasn't her shadow anymore. I was Claire grieving, yes, but also hopeful, ready to embrace the life we were building. The days after the gender reveal were a strange mix of relief and tension. My phone buzzed with messages from relatives and friends, some offering support for the adoption, others awkwardly sidestepping the drama. Emily stayed silent, and I was grateful for it. I needed space to breathe, to focus on the future instead of the wreckage she'd left behind. Mark and I threw ourselves into preparing for the adoption. We met with our social worker, Sarah, a kind woman in her 50s who radiated calm. She walked us through the final steps, showing us photos of the little girl we'd soon call ours Lila, a 3-year-old with wide brown eyes and a shy smile. Every time I looked at her picture, my heart ached with a mix of grief for the baby we'd lost and hope for the one we'd gain. One evening, as we painted Lila's room a soft lavender, Mark paused, his roller dripping onto the tarp. "Do you think Emily will try to reach out?" he asked, his brow furrowed. I sighed, setting my brush down. "Maybe, but I'm not ready to forgive her. Not yet." He nodded, understanding. "You don't have to. She needs to earn that." The next morning, I found a letter in our mailbox. Emily's handwriting scrawled across the envelope. My stomach twisted, but I opened it, curiosity outweighing my anger. Her words were a jumble of apologies and excuses, claiming she'd been overwhelmed by her pregnancy and hadn't meant to hurt me. She asked to meet, to make things right. I set the letter down, unsure if I'd respond. Part of me wanted to believe she could change, but the larger part remembered her smug smile at the party, the way she'd wielded my pain like a trophy. I showed the letter to Mark, who read it with a frown. "Sounds like she's more sorry she got caught than anything else," he said, tossing it onto the counter. "Exactly," I said, crossing my arms. "I'm not ready to let her back in. Not until she shows she's changed." Over the next few weeks, we focused on Lila. We bought a crib, stuffed animals, and tiny clothes, each purchase a step toward healing. My parents came over often, their excitement for their soon-to-be granddaughter a bright spot in the fog of family drama. They didn't mention Emily, and I didn't ask. The silence was a fragile piece, but I clung to it. One afternoon, Sarah called with news. Lila's foster family had agreed to a transition visit. We'd meet her next week. My heart raced with a mix of joy and nerves. What if she doesn't like us? I asked Mark that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. "She will," he said, pulling me close. "She'll see how much we love her." The day of the visit arrived, and we drove to the foster home, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. Lila was waiting in the living room, clutching a stuffed bunny, her eyes wide and curious. When she saw us, she hid behind her foster mom, but a small smile peeked out. I knelt down, offering her a book we'd brought. "Hi, Lila," I said softly. "I'm Claire." She took the book, her fingers brushing mine, and something in me clicked into place. This was my daughter, not by blood but by choice, and I'd fight for her happiness with everything I had. As we left, Mark squeezed my hand. "That's our girl," he whispered, and I nodded, tears in my eyes. Emily's betrayal felt distant now, a shadow that couldn't touch this light. But the shadow wasn't gone. That evening, my phone lit up with a text from Emily. "I heard about the visit. Can we talk? I miss you." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to protect this new joy, but another part wondered if there was a way to heal. Not just for me, but for our family. I didn't respond to Emily's text right away. The words sat heavy in my mind, tugging at old wounds and new hopes. Mark noticed my distraction as we cooked dinner, his eyes searching mine. "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" he asked, chopping carrots with a steady rhythm. I nodded, stirring the sauce. "I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to shut her out, but she's still my sister." He set the knife down, wiping his hands. "You don't owe her anything, Claire. But if you want to talk to her, do it on your terms, not hers." His words stuck with me as I drafted a reply later that night. "I'm not ready to talk yet. I need time." Short, honest, final. I hit send and felt a weight lift, however slightly. The next week was a whirlwind of preparations for Lila. We met with Sarah again, finalizing paperwork, and set a date for Lila to move in 12 months from now. The thought of her laughter filling our home made my heart swell, but it also sharpened my resolve to protect this new chapter from Emily's chaos. Then, unexpectedly, Emily showed up at our doorstep. It was a Saturday morning, the air crisp with autumn. Mark was at the hardware store, and I was sorting through Lila's books when the doorbell rang. Emily stood there, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands twisting nervously. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. I hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes, I said, crossing my arms. She sat on the couch, looking out of place in our cozy living room. I messed up, Claire, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to hurt you. I wanted to feel like I was doing something good. You know, like I was helping you. Helping me? I laughed, sharp and bitter. You told a crowd of people about my miscarriage. You used my pain to make yourself look better. That's not help, Emily. That's cruelty. She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know. I see that now. Jake's furious with me. And Mom and Dad, they're disappointed. I've been a mess since the party. I wanted to feel sorry for her, but the memory of her smug smile at the gender reveal burned too brightly. You've always done this, I said. You push me down to lift yourself up. I'm done with it. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I want to change. I want to be better. For my baby. For you. Can we try? Please. I studied her, searching for sincerity. There was something there, a flicker of regret, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I need time, I said, and I need you to prove you mean it. Actions, not words. She nodded again, standing. I'll try, Claire. I promise. After she left, I sat alone, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing, and she'd shattered it too many times. When Mark came home, I told him about the visit. He listened, his jaw tight, then pulled me into a hug. You set boundaries. That's huge. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. The next month passed in a blur of anticipation. Lila's transition visits grew longer, her shy smiles turning into giggles as she warmed to us. One day, she called me Mama for the first time, and I cried, holding her close. Emily stayed quiet, respecting my boundaries, though I heard from Mom that she was seeing a therapist, trying to work through her need for attention. As Lila's move-in date approached, I felt a shift. The pain of the miscarriage, of Emily's betrayal, was still there, but it was softer now, overshadowed by love and possibility. I wasn't sure if Emily and I could ever be close again, but I was open to trying in my terms. For Lila's sake, for our family's future. Lila's first day in our home was a quiet miracle. She arrived with her stuffed bunny clutched tightly, her eyes wide as she explored her new room. Mark and I took turns reading to her, her small body curled between us on the couch. Every laugh, every curious question, felt like a stitch in the wound Emily had torn open. The pain of the past wasn't gone, but Lila's presence made it bearable. My parents came over that evening, their faces glowing with pride as they played with Lila. She's perfect, my mother said, tears in her eyes as Lila showed her a drawing. My father nodded, his usual stoicism softened by her giggles. They didn't mention Emily, and I didn't bring her up. This day was for Lila. For us. A week later, Emily texted again, asking to meet Lila. I hesitated, discussing it with Mark over coffee. She's been quiet, keeping her distance, I said, tracing the rim of my mug. Maybe she's trying. Mark leaned back, his expression cautious. Maybe, but you don't have to rush this. Lila's our priority now. I nodded, texting Emily back, not yet. I need to see more from you first. Her reply was simple, I understand, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that she might actually mean it. Over the next few months, Emily made small efforts. She sent a gift for Lila's soft blanket with her name embroidered in, called Mom, to ask about us. Not just herself. She was still in therapy, Mom said, working on her need to be the center of attention. I wasn't ready to fully forgive, but I acknowledged her steps, however tentative. One spring afternoon, I agreed to meet Emily at a park. Lila was with Mark at a playdate, giving me space to face my sister alone. Emily arrived with a small bouquet of daisies. My favorite. Her smile nervous but genuine. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, sitting on a bench. "About what I did. About who I've been. I'm so sorry, Claire. Not just for the party, but for all the times I hurt you." I listened, my heart torn between skepticism and hope. "I want to believe you," I said, "but trust takes time. You broke something big, Emily." "I know," she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness today. I just want a chance to earn it." We talked for an hour, not just about the past, but about Lila. About her baby, a boy, born healthy a month ago. She showed me a picture, her face softening as she described him. For the first time, I saw a glimpse of the sister I'd once loved, before rivalry had driven a wedge between us. As we parted, I didn't promise anything, but I felt lighter. "Keep showing up," I told her. "For yourself. For your son. Maybe we can find a way forward." That night, I tucked Lila into bed, her bunny tucked under her arm. "I love you, Mama," she murmured, her eyes heavy with sleep. I kissed her forehead, my heart full. Emily's betrayal had nearly broken me, but it had also pushed me to reclaim my strength, to build a family on my terms. The road to healing with Emily would be long, and maybe we'd never be as close as we once were. But as I looked at Lila, then at Mark waiting in the doorway, I knew I had everything I needed. The cake at the gender reveal had held my twist. But this, our daughter, our love, our resilience, was the real victory.